Mayor Eric Adams preparing now to travel to Washington, D.C. to demand more federal help in dealing with the migrant crisis, fresh off his trip to the Texas border.
FEMA deals with national crises. FEMA must step up, and there should be one coordinator to coordinate everything that is happening dealing with the migrants and asylum seekers in our country.
So Mayor Adams is defending his trip this morning, despite critics who say he's sending the wrong message when he says there's no more room for migrants. So joining us this morning is former City Council Speaker Christine Quinn, who currently serves as the CEO of WIN, the largest shelter provider for families in New York City. So good morning, Christine. Thanks for being with us.
Of course. Good morning.
So do you agree with Mayor Adams' statement that FEMA should appoint a coordinator to help deal with the migrant crisis?
You know, I think it was great that the mayor went to the border. And I think he's right to say that the federal government should be giving us more funding and that there should be a coordinator in FEMA, not just for New York City's needs, but for all of the cities and towns and counties that are now supporting and taking in asylum seekers. Where the mayor and I diverge is there's never going to be no room at the inn in New York for people who are fleeing oppression and violence. We will always find a way to open our arms and support those New Yorkers. But the mayor, those new New Yorkers, the mayor's right. The federal government needs to do more. It is great that Majority Leader Schumer was able to get $800 million, but the mayor's right. We need more coordination and we need more money. But there are also actions we can take as a city to help deal with this crisis. We could make housing vouchers that homeless people use to get permanent housing. We could make those available to asylum seekers and other undocumented New Yorkers, and that would help get them out of shelter, get them stabilized, and get them a permanent place to live in New York City.
Okay, so yesterday, Ms. Quinn, you spoke to our reporter Henry Rossoff, right? And you said much of what you were saying just now, praising the mayor. But there are a lot of critics who say his visit isn't really doing anything for the folks who are already here in New York City, right? And what is your vision for those folks who are here? And is the appropriate amount of attention being paid to them?
So we have 274 asylum-seeking families in our shelters at WIN. That includes 700 children. And the mayor could today take two steps that would make a huge difference. Right now, when you go into shelter, asylum seeker or not, you have to wait 90 days before you can apply for housing. That's created a bottleneck in our shelters. If we got rid of that rule and allowed people to move into permanent housing right away, we would open up space for other homeless people and for the asylum seekers. If we allowed undocumented people like the asylum seekers to get housing subsidies, they would be able to get permanent housing and move out of shelter. If you couple that with potential federal action expediting working papers, these folks would really be able to get stabilized and start safe, violence-free lives in New York and in the United States. Because this is a problem that can be solved only by the federal government, the state government, the local government, and New Yorkers pitching in. Because we need support from everyday New Yorkers with donations of items and of money to help groups like WIN. We have spent $1 million more helping these asylum seekers than we were budgeted for. So it really has to be a all New York effort.
I mean, the cost is mind-boggling, really. And like you said, New Yorkers need to pitch in. So how can this city save this money or raise this money to do the work that needs to be done to help the migrants?
Well, a lot of the money, the mayor's right, has to come from the federal government and the state government. The state has never paid its fair share as it relates to shelters, and this is the time for it to step up and put the money in that it really, quite frankly, should always have been putting in. If we move people, whether they're migrants or not, out of shelter, into permanent housing through making housing vouchers available and getting rid of this arbitrary time wait, we will save money. Because having somebody in shelter is about 3 times more expensive than having them live in permanent housing with a voucher. That's just wasted money in a less good situation.
I think a lot of New Yorkers, though, are just concerned that this city, people that are already here in the city, not migrants, but just regular, everyday
Right.
New Yorkers, are going to be, losing services themselves because that money will be going to the migrants instead.
Well, we don't see that happening at the moment. What we see is, yes, the need to spend more money, but we don't see anything like that happening. And I want to say,
But the
we
threat's
have
out there.
shelter
Right?
rent-
The threat is out there.
Pardon me?
The threat is out there. The threat's already been made by the
For
mayor, who
cuts,
says
yeah.
he's going to have to cut certain services in the budget moving forward if the federal money isn't coming. So here's the thing. I hear what you're saying. You're doing great work. What if the federal money doesn't come in the amount that it's needed, right? Because they're sending some. Schumer said it's coming,
Right.
just not what the dollar amount should be, what the request is. So what's the end result?
Well, look, right now, we're not in that place. We're not in the place where we have gotten an inadequate amount of money from the federal government. We're in the place where we're fighting for what we need. We're in the place where we're pushing for FEMA to do more and for the feds and the state to send more money. So there's no need at this time for people to panic or for us to engage in hypotheticals, because that's not where we're at today.
All right. Well, Christine Quinn, thanks again so much for taking the time to speak with us about this very important issue.
Absolutely.